Thank you very much for coming in this late afternoon. Very glad, such a cool crowd. And thank you, Andreas and Sam, for inviting us. I think it's an incredible initiative to unfold the secret zones of knowledge as well. So I'm very privileged to be here. I also want to give credit to some images that I will use today. The first image. The first image is by Dark Ecologies. Wait a second. Yes. This one, Dark Ecologies, that is making a significant research in the northern part of Russia, in those cities that also were never mentioned on the map, and on the dark ecologies that are happening on these territories. And then you will also see some videos of a conceptual artistic group, former architects, Moscow Conceptualists, the Blue Soup Group. Of secret zones. An unnoticeable fading colored document is now within my Russian internal passport. There is no photo on it, just my name and the entry dates. A visa for a single access to one of the most restricted zones on the territory of the former socialist bloc, Serov. With meticulous restrictions how to get to the checkpoint, I enter an ordinary-looking train. It is a night train scheduled 3 times a week. At 12:30 a.m., when the official final stop is announced, I don't move. Neither do a few others in my carriage. We all know what to do. A routine for others, I'm new, and I'm carefully observed. My adrenaline barometer registers the controversial. Curiosity, privilege, anxiety, and yes, vanity. I am one of the selected to enter the secret zone. The myth of entering a secret zone is deeply rooted in the horrors and desires of the last generation of Soviet children. Everything in the secret city exceeds the norm. Stellar education, a dense concentration of several generations of outstanding brains, extreme greenery, pathological honesty, and prosperity. Children of the Soviet period know that these are the cities where strategic knowledge is created. Nuclear sciences, genetics, space research, and further today, artificial intelligence, crypto coding, and so on. Even the verbal index of the citizens attest to that superiority and a different kind of urban consciousness. Residents of the secret cities would never disclose the name of their settlement, substituting it with the ephemeras, the zone or the city. They call the unclassified territories the big land. After the last official stop, my train no longer has numbers. 2 different controllers are now examining the wagon, one in uniform and one in civilian clothes. I show my visa and passport. There are no words, just a nod. These silences will become integral signs during my visit. The train now moves in the opposite direction. No destination is assigned. No more stations will be announced. The train zigzags drastically on untraceable tracks. My GPS is down, and network bars are blink, if not disappearing altogether. We arrive. There is no station name on the platform. There is actually no platform, just an irregular and narrow asphalt line delineating the station from a pretty wild landscape. It's 3 a.m. and the blinding Hollywooding spotlight of the checkpoint illuminate the darkness and the trained military dogs. I am entering the city with my colleagues, some local scientists. By registering our language, that is the architectural language, by the way, the zone, perimeter, platform, and base, the security immediately detects who is who. Sarov, the city for which I obtained the visa, is at the core of the USSR's nuclear shield. It belongs to the 43 officially declassified secret cities of the Cold War, still today in operation. Moreover, it is one of the strategic 10. Now I'll show you the aerial views of Sarov, extracted from the black boxes of the US intelligence by the Soviets. So it has this triple history. What interests me in particular in the story of the secret zone and secret cities is the spatial formula that can be extracted. Is the spatial and special matrix, how secret zones operate, and the bureaucracies of secrecy. Silence as a plan, silence and secrecy as cultural constructs, and a predominant feature of strategic knowledge and power potentials. Social media filters, for instance today, erase information and unfold discrepancies, omissions, and liminal spaces in a very similar way. So through their absence in the cities from maps and discourse, these secret zones represent a particular regulation of time, space, and knowledge transference placed beyond any official media. These dots of strategic military information perforated the surface of Soviet physical and intellectual space. What I'm also interested in this story is the biological condition of secrecy and secret zones. That secrecy is derived from Latin secretum or secretus, that has two meanings. One is to set apart, and the other one is the most intimate biological condition of a human body, secrecy, secretum, that our body is producing. It's the closest liquid to the skin of a human. So the first formula that I decided to extract, is closely connected with the verbal index. How a secret city is called. A secret city is a mailbox in everyday life. It's called a mailbox or почтовый ящик, which literally means the box to put mails in, and it incorporates the idea of one-way communication media system, a network of storage under total control. I was born in the mailbox. One of the most common phrases among the citizens best describes the notorious claim that the reality of architecture is one of the media form. Incoming mail, however, was addressed not to the geographical location, but to an abstract notion, a code, a mailbox XXX, that was not necessarily identical to the official postal area code. Thus, the name of the location was the box, an abstract notion and the undeterminable location. Coming from a box, still today immediately marks the social status, the privilege, and traveling restrictions. I wonder if this vernacular wisdom of comparing the city as well as the architectural studios designing weapons, aircrafts, space and military electronics to hermeneutic boxes with sealed, controlled and carefully selected information, as well as to the black box, the database which survives a catastrophe, reveals a particular shift that allows architecture to follow a radically different narrative, comparing cities to documents, perforated tables, files multiplied and classified. Or to revisit Cornelia Wiesmann's theory, a city operating as a classified document per se, unfolding the legal status of files. Balancing on border of existence and non-existence, secret zones remain one of the most extreme examples of human geographies or heterotopian spaces of otherness. This was kind of a permission that you enter into the passport. The interaction with the media and collective memories, screen memories, shadow memories, is also a peculiar one here. These secret zones have been traced only by fading pieces of information, gossips, rumors, fears, or sometimes by a weird code or a link after a telephone call, clink, which could be though immediately interrupted. Even in the professional slang of latest telegraphers, the goddess of communication, in the eclipse of the Cold War, these secret zones were identified as Morse paradox, dot line locations, due to the special rhythm of clang of these calls from nowhere. They were marked by fakes, and that is one of the operational systems of secret zones, like fake formations, disinformation. So today, data analysis, budgets, geographical and architectural simulations, handwritten military notes, and official political orders, civil records, declassified materials, oral histories, and photos from private archives and local museums serve as the primary sources of information. However, one of the most significant features of secret zone and of secret urbanism per se remains the production of a massive amount of simulations, legal materials, fake architectural evidences, fake plans, sections, renderings, whose essential goal was to verify the illusion of non-existence, activating an ongoing argument with actual geographies and geographical coordinates. Disinformation, disorientation, blurring, and camouflage became the side effects, the byproducts, and parallel narratives, as well as the powerful determination of a secret zone. Paradoxes of secrecies. And one of the paradoxes of secrecies is, of course, the interlocking, this weird connections of maps and secrets. How do we present a secret? What's the visual interface of a secret? So if there had been a representational device that could tell us all about the secret zones, paradoxically, it would have been a map. I will show some slides that I got from the secret cities. This is one of the brain institutes that is that has a very particular department, and this department is specialized in architectural neuroscience, basically how our brain is registered and remembers our moving paths through space. So maps, following the order of archaic cosmos into which one descends to find hidden paths, coded signs, treasures, and secrets. If secret cities were our secrets, how are they distinguished on the map? This is one of the early representation of a secret city in Novouralsk. It looks like a garden city. It's right in the middle, in the Urals mountains of Russia. Or to put it another way, what role does the map play in the realm of contested and liminal spaces? What does a map as a cultural construct mean in regards to secret zone, to a total lack of visual presence? What is the iconography and iconology of being camouflaged, of being absent from the map? And finally, what are the mythologies that is concealed behind this concealment? So the irony of a map, and I'll say a few words about this one in a second. The irony of the map is that even to map a village implies the the possibility of mapping the whole world. That's the core, that's the formula how map operate. The medieval mappa mundi unleashes a vision of the world as a whole and a world from above, a God's view, and a maximum degree of abstraction. A will to omniscience is innate in the map, I believe, and it directs and in direct tension with both the production and unlocking of the secrets. And that is a good example because the city is as big as this lake. It's a fake lake. Basically, the secret zone and the secret city is located under the lake, on the territory of this fake waterfront. Though a map presents a purely Platonic concept of the world with imagination central, the raw materiality of mapping is evident. Mappa, textile into which a map was inflicted in some crude transcriptions, more specifically attested as a tablecloth, flag, or a napkin on the table. Literally, a map is a sheet on the table, sheet of the world. It configures a portable world, a portable territory. It is by means of a map that territory is transferred and presented as a known unknown. So what are the paradoxes of silences, blind spots, and deleted accounts against the backdrop of these cartographic realities? It is to say that each pattern of mapping already contains a secret. Is secrecy like a virus injected into maps? This shift in cartographic habitus suggests a growing control over future, but is accompanied also by a widening of military futures, where the nexus between the map and secret becomes even more mosaic and multi-layered. And then there are some anecdotes of mapping and the rhetoric of concealment of secret cities that I call in my book Secrets and Clouds, towards the iconography of the invisible. So if we want to go fishing or hiking, we would, next to the secret city, we would need to operate with a specific classified map, otherwise risked to be misleading by a vast number of fictional waterfronts. Because usually in the Soviet Union, in the Soviet bloc per se, the secret zones and most strategic cities were covered by the fake waterfront. Lakes, rivers, any kind of water. So needless to say, scientists from the secret cities were well aware of the danger of the waterfront. So if they noticed that on the map there are too many water spots, they would be really conscious about it. They were quite familiar with the camouflage grammars of strategic domains. Lakes, rivers, shorelines formed the core tradition of the Soviet imagery security. Residents of the secret cities never followed officially printed maps. They would never even purchase one, preferring to craft maps on their own based on the empirical experience, or in case of good personal connections, to rely on the classified military copy. Any waterfront of the official map for them signaled suspicion and anxiety. A waterfront would immediately be associated with the close proximity to a secret zone, to a military zone, to an excluded zone. It was a synonym of a pure enigma. Several decades later, in the era of Google Earth, the magical function of fake waterfronts would be replaced by the new generation of the ephemera. That is the clouds. The constant clouds. The coexistence of its visible and invisible urban zones still today mark this drastic contrast. So it's quasi-visible, the city, but it's under the constant cloud. These clouds never move. They can only be replaced by the other type of clouds. A spectacular palette of geographical concealment varies from speedrift clouds, cumulus clouds, or most commonly the cirrostratus, thin, high-level lane of clouds forming the blinding veil above the strategic domains. There is another scenario of reading the saga of the new military camouflage. In this fantasy of an intimate globe, to use Victoria de Palma definition, one can even talk of a bizarre geographical battle of regulatory principles of visual apparatus. Unlike China, US, North Korea, and Israel, operating with more abstract, as we see here, and techno-based imagery that signify a failure of technology, actually, pixelation, blurring, or black striping, Russia's military intelligence used to persistently refer to the tradition of covering the enigmatic terrains with liquid droplets of frozen crystals. This linking to the ephemerality and subjectivity can be traced back to aesthetic preoccupations of the 18th century, the crepuscular iconography of Romanticism and the theory of sublime. This was not the era of the meta-art history yet. And my last thought, my last chapter is entitled From Secret Files to Icons. How do we translate this formula of secrecy into our, as a cultural construct, into everyday life? How do we translate it back to the core structure of the human imagery? How do we read the image of secrecy on various territories, including the territory of contemporary art? And here is another paradox. Remarkably, in late 1970s, in the golden era of classified information, the work of Moscow conceptualist artists, Emilia and Ilya Kabakov, Under the Snow, or Secrets Under the Snow, tackle exactly this mode of thinking. How do we find secrets? And what is the formula of secret spaces? So Kabakovs are showing this white shred of snow covering the real life, that the real life happens under the snow, under this shred of information, of unreadable information. This offspring of secrecy in underground artistic practice signals, for me, that secrecy was no longer a reminder, but simply another formal quality of materials, ideas and life vision in general. Once divested from the ideological burdens, these statements are reflected on contemporary artistic discourses and have become a major source of inspiration for also dissident practices. Yeah, there is the whole chapter of conceptual artists in the socialist bloc that is using this apparatus of coding and decoding that was coined in the secret military zone. So the figure of secrecy made a spectacular return in visual art and literature, taking the discourse of the power of invisible and military displacements to the whole new extreme. Perhaps it is precisely at the moment of social dislocation and disturbance, the transformation of sacral spaces of knowledge, that are usually secret zones, and danger production or death production, into secular urbanism starts to be inevitably present. Knowledge, its concealment, maintenance, and decoding become both industry and art form. The hermetic formula of a secret zone, like a message in the bottle, marks out the plot for a slow and careful archaeological dig into the powerful prehistoric past of secrecy. Secrecy as a myth. The hyper-formula of a secret zone reached down into the deepest strata of the unconscious thought, genetic memory, and cellular life to examine the complex ecology of trans-rational or irrational, non-linear phenomenon, a parallel narrative of political mainstream, officially recognized history of architecture, history of art, and history of ideas. Thank you.